Hi, I'm Sarah Martin, the Student Services TOSA here in Palm Springs Unified School District, and this video is focusing on supercharging your classroom incentives. First, we're going to talk about reward prediction errors. Reward prediction errors are basically the difference between the rewards we predict we will receive for a behavior and the rewards we actually receive. Here's an example of a reward prediction error as given by Wolfram Schultz. I adapted this example from the website that's listed on the bottom of this screen. I'm standing in front of a drink dispensing machine in Japan that seems to allow me to buy 6 different types of drinks. I cannot read the words. I have a low expectation that pressing a particular button will deliver my preferred Sprite. I have a chance of 1 in 6. So I press the second button from the right, and then a green can appears with a familiar logo that happens to be exactly what I want to drink. This is a pleasant surprise, better than expected. What would I do the next time I want the same drink from that machine? Of course, press the second button from the right. Thus, my surprise directs my behavior to a specific button. I've learned something, and I will keep pressing the same button as long as the same can comes out. However, a couple of weeks later, I press that same button again, but another, less preferred can appears. Unpleasant surprise. Somebody must have filled the dispenser differently. Where is my preferred can? I press another couple of buttons until my green can comes out. And of course, I will press that button again next time. I want that drink. And hopefully all will go well. So what happened? The first button press delivered my preferred can. This pleasant surprise is what we call a positive reward prediction error. Error refers to the difference between the can that came out and the low expectation of getting exactly that one, irrespective of whether I made an error or something else went wrong. Reward is any object or stimulus that I like and of which I want more. Reward prediction error then means the difference between the reward I get and the reward that was predicted. Once I get the same can again and again for the same button press, I get no more surprises. There is no more prediction error. I don't change my behavior and thus I learn nothing more about the buttons. But what about the wrong can coming out 2 weeks later? I had the firm expectation that my preferred drink would be there. Even though there was an unpleasant surprise, the can that came out was not the one that I preferred. I experienced a negative prediction error. The difference between the non-preferred, lower-valued can and the expected, preferred can. At the end of the exercise, I have learned where to get my preferred drink, and the prediction errors helped me to learn where to find it. In a nutshell, rewards produce learning. Pavlov's dog hears a bell, sees a sausage, and salivates. If done often enough, the dog will salivate merely on hearing a bell. We say that the bell predicts the sausage, and that is why the dog salivates. This type of learning occurs automatically, without the dog actively doing anything except being awake. Operant conditioning, another basic form of learning, requires the animal's participation. Thorndike's cat runs around a cage until it happens to press a latch and suddenly gets out and can eat. The food is great, and the cat presses the button again and again. Operant learning requires the subject's own action, otherwise no reward will come and no learning will occur. Pavlovian and operant learning constitute the building blocks for behavioral reactions to rewards. Next, we're going to talk about reinforcers in the classroom. There are 2 main categories of reinforcers. First is primary. Primary reinforcers are naturally reinforcing. These are things like food, water, warmth, sleep, and physical comfort. We also have secondary reinforcers. That is something you have learned as a reward, paired with a primary reinforcer in the long run. Some examples of secondary reinforcers are money, grades, and token economies in the classroom. Of these types of reinforcers, we see moral, economic, and social reinforcers that we use often in our classroom. One is much more effective than the other. Of the three, moral is the least effective, and in studies with adults, it had zero impact on behavior. Economic reinforcers were fairly effective. These include token economies, group points, and so on. I'm sure that most teachers are very familiar with this type of reinforcer. Social reinforcer was extremely effective in studies, and that's basically using positive social interactions to encourage behavior. It comes down to the greater number of people who find an idea correct, the more a given individual will perceive that idea to be correct. One side note that I want to point out is if that the reinforcers don't work, then they aren't reinforcing. We want to make sure that the things we're using to reinforce our students, they find value in. I do have a resource and I will add it in the comments section. We have a lot of forced reinforcement choice menus that you can use with your students to find out what they find to be the most reinforcing. When identifying reinforcers that work in our classroom, something to think about is the Premack principle. Basically, it states a more preferred activity can be used to reinforce a less preferred activity, because we are more motivated to perform a task that we don't enjoy if we will be rewarded with something that we like afterwards. Also, I wanted to talk about praise. We hear a lot about a 5-to-1 or a 4-to-1 praise ratio, but a 1-to-1 praise ratio is still effective. Studies are showing us that the higher the ratio, the stronger the results. So if you're struggling to get to that 4-to-1 praise ratio, simply focus on progress over perfection. Next, let's talk a little bit about punishment. If you're going to use punishment in your classroom, here are some best practices. It should be immediate, certain, limited, and targeted at the behavior, not the person. When I say that it is certain, the students should know that there is a punishment every time a behavior occurs. Some other things to note regarding punishment include that the severity has very little effect on a punishment's effectiveness, and punishment often produces an immediate change, so it reinforces the punisher more than the student. Punishment is not very effective in the long run because the power to suppress behavior usually disappears when the threat is gone. So if you think about how you feel once a police officer passes you after they've been following you for a little while, you'll know that you relax and your behavior might change as soon as that police officer is out of sight. Punishment also triggers escape and/or aggression among our students. It makes the scholar apprehensive and it inhibits learning. And it is often applied unequally among students. I want to talk about extinction bursts and motivation very quickly. An extinction burst is when decreasing a behavior, temporary increases in frequency, rate, or intensity of that behavior may happen before it decreases. You can kind of think of an extinction burst using a vending machine example. If I put the money into a vending machine and my chips get stuck on their way out, I may press a button more feverishly. I may escalate my behavior and even shake the machine before I stop that behavior. Now we're going to talk about motivation and extrinsic incentives. Intrinsic motivation can result from a strong association between an activity and its goal. Harnessing immediate rewards along with pursuing delayed rewards can be an effective strategy to increase persistence on long-term goals among our students. Extrinsic incentives can positively influence intrinsic motivation, increase engagement among our scholars, create habits because behavior begins to outlast the rewards. Now, let's take a look at maximizing our incentives in the classroom. A research study in 2006 gave out 2 types of loyalty cards at a cafe where customers received a stamp for every cup of coffee that they bought. Both cards rewarded customers with a free coffee once they filled up the card. Card A needed 10 stamps to receive the free coffee, and card B needed 12 stamps for the free coffee, but the first 2 stamps were already punched. So what happened was card B customers finished 20% sooner. What does that tell us? That we get more motivated the closer that we get to a goal. We can also consider the Zeigarnik effect, which shows us that when we are about 75% done with a task, it creates task tension, and it often keeps people motivated to finish the work. So let's talk about how we can apply the goal gradient effect to our classroom. Try to move finished goals to a new starting point with your scholars. Acknowledge when people complete trivial tasks. Mention a first step that is already completed, and start progress above 0. Also consider framing. Focusing on the unaccomplished portion of a goal provides a bigger incentive for those with a deeper commitment, and focusing on the already accomplished portion is more effective for those scholars who are less invested. So basically try to minimize the middle. In order to maintain motivation at the beginning, look back at what has already been accomplished, and towards the end, look ahead to your goal that you've almost met. Now we're looking ahead to supercharging our incentives in the classroom. Schedules of reinforcement are basically how often we reward our students. There are many types that we can use in the classroom. The first one I'm going to talk about is continuous schedule of reinforcement, which is rewarding behavior every time that behavior occurs. Fixed interval reinforcement rewards behavior after a set amount of time. Fixed ratio rewards behavior after a set number of responses. Variable interval schedule of reinforcement rewards behavior after an unpredictable time elapses, and a variable ratio schedule of reinforcement rewards behavior after an unpredictable number of responses. One works much better than the rest, so let's take a look at that now. Variable ratio reinforcement schedule is the most effective type of reinforcement that we can use. Instagram's variable ratio schedule arises from the unpredictable nature of receiving likes, comments, and other forms of engagement on posts. Users don't know how many interactions a post will get, and this uncertainty keeps them motivated to post more content in hopes of receiving more engagement, similar to a slot machine. This variable reinforcement schedule contributes to the platform's addictive nature and sustained user engagement. So if we tie this to a reward prediction error, one can begin by reinforcing every response, then gradually reduce reinforcement rates to the lowest level that maintains a satisfactory response rate from your scholars. Variable reinforcement schedules are preferable to fixed schedules because the unpredictability of reinforcement generates more consistent and rapid responding. Reward prediction error is something that casinos, video games, and social media shows is the best way to reinforce behavior with intermittent rewards. If you fail all the time, you give up and stop trying. If you win all the time, you get bored and stop trying. If you succeed just often enough, you will keep trying. Our brains are prediction machines. We are looking for duration, path, and outcome. And when the brain can't figure something out, it thinks and thinks and thinks. So let's talk a little bit about lottery carrots versus non-lottery carrots. Lottery carrots are more motivating than non-lottery carrots. People overthink small probability events. People work harder for a lottery ticket with an expected value of $1 than they will to actually get a physical dollar. This type of overthinking motivates people to work harder to avoid statistically unlikely punishments. Next, let's look at the Stockholm Speed Camera Lottery. If in Stockholm you drive at or under the speed limit, you're entered into a lottery funded by traffic fines. So every time a person drives by this sign, they are entered into the lottery. So they are getting reinforcement for driving by. But the reward actually comes if they win. But the average speed reduced by 22% when they put the sign in. The best research shows that you don't want to incentivize outputs like grades, test scores, and so on. You want to incentivize inputs like behaviors and studying. Incentives lose power as time increases after each action. Loss aversion is the most powerful lever in incentives. And remember that social proof, that you want to use that for influence. The more people who think something is correct, the more likely any given individual will agree that it is correct. And incentives can lead to habits and intrinsic motivations. So, surprise your students into growing. Give them unexpected rewards that will lead to positive change. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was useful. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or comments.